And that I will mute if my dog starts barking or my kids start screaming. That's one disadvantage of being at home.
Looks like we're up and running.
All right.
Okay. I would like to call the hearing to order. Michelle, can you please roll call?
Yes, Mr. Bahavich,
Here.
Mr. McNulty,
Here.
Ms. Trabellis,
Here.
Mr. Pierce,
Here.
and Ms. Harris.
Here.
Okay. So we're here to discuss the rezoning case ZON-21-01, North Farms Development LLC. I'm going to go over a few ground rules here for tonight's meeting. When the board is ready for public comment, there will be an opportunity for members of the public to speak during the hearing via Zoom. Statements made or written in any chat rooms will not serve as public comment. If you would like to speak, please unmute yourself, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. Residents wishing to speak shall keep their comments limited to the merits of the application. Personal attacks on the applicant, township officials, or other residents will not be tolerated, and residents may lose their right to speak. The chair reserves the right to have the residents muted who engage in personal attacks. Right. Michelle, do you want to review the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bahavich. I will go over this briefly. However, we do have 3 zoning commission members that are not as familiar with this application as the other 2 have been in the past. But this is zoning application number ZON-20-01, North Farm Condominium LLC. The property is located at 5351 North Road. Surrounding it is pretty much entirely of the single family district of the North Farms development. To the east is the railroad and Evans Farm. And the Evans Farm, specifically the Jennings Sports Park. I just want to point out, as far as the comprehensive land use plan goes, that was adopted in 2018. This area is referenced as sub-area 13 of the comprehensive land use plan. The sub-area encourages plan office, commercial, or single-family units of 2 units per acre south of Shanahan Home and west of schools. So based on however, this proposal is a multifamily district. And this is the illustrated plan that the applicant provided, which I'm sure we will review again. In my staff review, again, they submitted an application last year. It was an apartment proposal. The zoning commission did recommend approval, and the trustees overturned that decision and denied the application. And now this year they are proposing a condominium development. So I thought my thought was, for the staff review, I would identify what was proposed in this application and identify what was the difference in the original one. I don't want to get into the details on that too particularly, as I'm sure the applicant can touch on that as well. But this was shared with the zoning commission members in advance. I do have a few staff comments based on our review. I was questioning how the garage buildings were. I think there might be an error in the text stating, the text says it was 5 garage buildings, but it seems like every building has a garage. So I'd like the applicant to clarify that. And a couple other things we had questions on was the dumpster enclosure, how would that be handled? And then some of the materials that were provided in this application were the same materials as far as the 2020 application, as far as the feasibility letters go and studies. I don't know if that's a concern to the board members, but I did notice that in my review. And as always, staff encourages the applicant to communicate with nearby residents and property owners. I'm not sure if there's any update on that for the applicant to share. The last thing I guess a couple things I want to point out in the staff report. I did reach out to the Orange Township Fire Department, and at the time of this report, the fire department has not reviewed the newest plan proposal for this application. So It looks like on the plans, they do say that the fire department approved it, so I'm not really sure what all communication they did have. I'll have the applicant touch on that too as well when it gets to their point of this hearing. But I know the emergency access did change locations, so we want to make sure that the fire department is okay with that. And then the last part of the report, just to let the commission know, the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission did recommend conditional approval of the rezoning request for this application, subject to 3 modifications or clarifications. The first one is clarify whether the development is for condominiums or multifamily apartments. I'm sure that'll be brought up a lot in the discussion this evening. The Regional Planning Commission also questioned the need for 2 model home units. So hopefully the applicant can touch on that. The second modification is the increase of usable open space. That was a recommendation from the regional planning. And the last bullet point here is to consider an additional connection through the extension of Hibbing Lane. And that is my staff report. Again, I'm happy to go over the development standards, the differences, but the board did review that in advance. So I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Does someone with the applicant wish to go over this case?
Yes, Joe Thomas of Metro Development. Michelle, am I able to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. That was Joe that said that, right?
Yes.
Well, okay, thanks.
Joe Thomas.
Yep. Should have access now.
Okay. Again, this is Joe Thomas with Metro Development, 470 Old Worthington Road, Westerville, Ohio, 43082. Appreciate everybody's time this evening. As Michelle mentioned in the earlier discussion, as you all may know, we've been here before. This was our, from a standpoint of this particular piece of ground, this is our third attempt on the rezoning. We were successful back in the early 2000s, and I think it was 13 or 12 to rezone this for single family homes. And previously it was approved for 43 homes within that 24 acres. We've been actively marketing this piece of ground of the 43 homes to Central Ohio builders such as MI Homes, Rockford Homes, Pulte, and others, even mentioning going and working possibly with a single family detached condominium builder such as Epcon Homes or Schottenstein Homes. And we've had no luck in selling this ground to other developers. So as Michelle mentioned earlier, we came in with an application last year that was for all apartment type of development of 144 units. We did successfully have a planning commission approval. However, when we reached the trustees, we had a denial. One of the comments made by the trustees was the fact of the matter was it was not a ownership type of unit or was not owned by an individual or wasn't necessarily a type of property that was for sale versus for rent. So in order for us to come back as a new application, we decided to now come back with a condominium application. So just to kind of end all confusion about the product, I know Scott Saunders with regional planning may have had some confusion about the fact that it either was multifamily for rent or attached condominiums. I just want to make it clear tonight that these will all be attached condominiums for sale. These will have condominium declarations that we provided copies of in the application, but we will also, once under construction, we will also be declaring these as condominiums. And the question that came up from regional planning as well as Michelle was the type of office that we would have located inside of our community, which would be located at the community center and our models. Years in past, in developing multifamily condominiums, we've always had necessarily an issue of selling through a property such as this of 144 units and having our models located within the community and running up against expiration dates by zonings of when and how long we can keep the sales office open as well as the models open. So in efforts to bring that to light in our application, we were looking at possibly an indefinite period of time, not knowing when we'd have the final sales completed in this community, but anticipation that we may have, a term of, these type of condominiums taking a little bit longer to sell if the market changes dramatically. So we kind of left that open in the sense that we'd keep 2 models and keep the sales office open, but willing to discuss some alternatives as far as how this will be handled, as far as the number of years we may have the models, as well as using the clubhouse as a sales center. So I just want to clarify that. So to go through the application, as Michelle presented earlier, this is, of course, the location is at North Road in Shanahan. It's located in the northeast corner, adjacent to what they call Jennings Park. The application is asking for 144 condominium units. There is 8 units in each building, and each unit has a garage. We still have a community center and a pool with that development. And we also, we had made commitments to the neighbors previously with this development in particular, that when we first started discussions, we had a clubhouse that was located closer to the North Road entry. In efforts to work with the neighbors as far as adjusting what we could possibly adjust in our last development, we discussed actually moving the clubhouse further away from the North Road entry. We have actually moved it even further away than our last application in efforts to get it further away from the neighbors. So there's an existing pond that already is located in this area. We're going to have to reshape this pond and relocate the pool and clubhouse further to the east and closer to the railroad tracks, in efforts to, like I mentioned earlier, to pull back the actual clubhouse further from the North Farms residents to the west of us. So just give you bearings again: North Road, Shanahan Road, the railroad crossing, and the future Jennings Park. And I forgot to mention, there was some discussion in regional planning about connecting these roadways. And we had this discussion at the last time. The development here is Rockford Homes. It's all on public streets. However, internally to our condominiums, it's all going to be private streets. So essentially, we requested that we have a main entry into our development that is private, and then have an additional fire access here that would be fire access only, but it also would be pedestrian connection that would allow residents from both communities to access our open space, our walkways, and also to transition from essentially from North Road up to Shanahan Road in the future to cross over to possibly to Jennings Park and so on.
This is Michelle. I don't know if it's just me, but you did cut out for a little bit on my end. Could you repeat what you just said?
Okay, I was talking about the access point being public versus private. What I was mentioning that in the staff report from regional planning, in the conditions was to make this connection between the 2 communities. What I mentioned was that North Farms development, Rockford's, is all public streets. Internally for our condominiums, it's all going to be private streets. So we will make this connection for fire lane and pedestrian access, and we will have our main connection off of North Road, opposing what is existing on the North Farms development to the west. This is a more clear picture of just a view of actual site plan for North Farms condominiums. As I mentioned earlier, these are all 8-unit buildings. There's 4 flats on the first floor and 4 flats on the second floor with all attached garages. Again, a community center with pool, With interior to the community center is a exercise facility, a movie theater, business office. And then amenities to the exterior amenities would be 2 pods of open space that we would have walkways, benches, and seating areas. And then on this south area, we'd have our mail kiosk, and we'd have a large grill area for condominium owners. These are our shots of additional, from a standpoint of our screening to neighbors across North Road, just to indicate how we're going to screen our development from our multifamily to the existing homes that are located across North Road. We roughly have 100 feet of open space between our first buildings and North Road. And then, of course, we have North Road and then another 170 feet to the most current or most distance from the existing neighbor. And then we would have internal moundings with evergreen trees on the top of the mounds, as well as deciduous trees located on the mounds as well, also in front of the mounds to screen. So these are 2 sections that are showing you the different, or 3 sections that show you the different cut throughs of residents essentially that are directly to the west of us, and how we're going to pull back our units, screen the units from North Road as well as residents to the west. These are architectural renderings of the community center, which is roughly 3,500 square feet. And as mentioned earlier, interior to the community center will be a sales office, will be a exercise facility, a game room, business office area for the residents, as well as a large gathering area for them. This would be the water meter building, which is a 4-sided architecture, which has the same similar products as the buildings have. So a stone water table, siding, and then dimensional shingles on the roof. This is the mailbox kiosk, which has columns surrounding dimensional shingle roof, and then interior to these will be lighting, and then the interior to those will be the mailboxes themselves. Then additional bufferings that we're showing here for the railroad. As everybody knows, there's a railroad adjacent to this property. We're going to continue the same buffer that we had similar to the North Road buffer. So we'll have large mounding, shrubs, and deciduous trees on top of those areas. And then, of course, this is a cross section of where the pond is. So we'll have mounding on the east side of the pond adjacent to the railroad. And we'll have shrubs and trees on top of that. And then as we get further down into the site of this area here, we would have, again, the same similar mounding with the evergreen trees and the deciduous trees adjacent to, as well as on top, for additional buffering. These are renderings of the exterior of the condominium buildings. As I mentioned earlier, they all have attached garages. They're, again, flat, so there's units on the first floor as well as units on the second floor. The residents will either enter through an exterior doorway or through their garage through a stairwell. So each garage has a stairwell, and then each doorway, there's an exterior doorway that allows them into the units themselves. So this would be the front door of an upstairs unit that people would enter here and then go to their upstairs unit. And then internal to the building or internal to a walkway, there's another entry door for the unit below. And these are floor plans. Sorry about that. So the first floor unit would be 2-bedroom, 2 full baths, would have a large master bedroom, owner suite with a private bath and walk-in closet. Each unit would have a built-in fireplace with a screen porch, and then a 1-car garage. In the lower level unit is 1,795 square feet. And then the upper unit is 3 bedrooms, 2 full and 1 half bath. Again, it would have an owner suite with a private bath, has see this upper unit has all cathedral ceilings. Again, a built-in fireplace, screen porch, and an attached one-car garage. I also have Todd Ferris here tonight. I was going to allow him to go over more details on the site plan itself. He's a landscape architect that designs these plans for us. He's the one that presented to regional planning. There was discussions about more programming of open space as far as the condition with regional planning. And we were going to discuss ideas on how to address that comment this evening with the site plan of adding some additional open space programming for this particular site. So Todd, if you can mention those items, I appreciate it.
Good evening. This is Todd Ferris with Ferris Planning and Design, 243 North 5th Street, Columbus, Ohio. As Joe said, there was a comment at regional planning to have more usable open space where we have these large central greens interior to the site. We also have the ability, as I discussed at regional planning, to look at our mounting. Right now, they're pretty wide. We want to keep the heights, but we have the ability to kind of shrink their footprint a little bit, in particular, probably along the railroad track, so we can get a pathway behind the units around the pond to make a circuit so they can walk around that back portion of the site. So they have a walking path that's continuous around there. So I think that's one amenity that we can add to this per regional planning's comment. Joe didn't touch on the fact that we do have a dog park down in the southeastern corner of the site there. So we can tie into that as well with this pathway system and probably get people back out then to the multi-use path that this project will construct along North Road as part of prior commitments that we made with the application for the original multifamily that was denied. So that gives people a lot of abilities to get out there and walk on continuous pathways. One thing you might also notice if you zoom in on the site plan is that we have sidewalks on both sides of the street. So that is a totally walkable community in here. And these large central open spaces, where, as Joe mentioned, we programmed in with either benches and seating areas so they can be gathering areas or grill areas and just activity areas so the folks can gather in groups in those areas as well. So I think there's a nice amenity package with this project and how we've presented it. And all of these units really are backing up to open space and are really, I think, nicely situated on this site. Probably all I have to add to that, Joe.
One item that Michelle did bring up was trash or dumpster enclosure.
Oh. Yep.
And, these are all be private hauling as far as individual containers for the residents. As part of the condominium community, they will contract with a hauler as far as trash and interior to the community. And just like any neighborhood pickup, neighbors will place their containers on the curb on any given day of the week when it's decided by the condominium association or the property management company. And then they'll have trash and recycling pickup, and then of course trash cans will be relocated back inside the garages.
All right. Thanks, Todd and Joe. I will now open the meeting up to the board members' comments and questions.
Didn't this community originally have another entrance off of North Road, or was there only one when this was presented a year ago?
Well, through discussions last time, upon approval of the apartments, we had discussed and compromised on bringing in 2 total access points on North Road. I don't know if Michelle has that site plan but the previous site plan had another entryway that was, like I mentioned earlier, the apartments. We had another entryway that came off a North Road that tied into this area here. From a standpoint of changing the plan and moving it to a condominium, we removed that road and continued to keep the same roadway network that was with the single family before.
I almost think it needs another entryway. Also, as I look through all the documentation here, Fire approved this last year with, of course, they used the Hibbing Road as an emergency. But has this been approved from Fire for this particular?
I have to verify that again. I know we sent them plans during our preliminary process of doing the engineering or preliminary engineering with the engineering office, and they traditionally send the plans to the fire department for their initial review and approval. But like Michelle mentioned, I don't recall if we have a letter or approval or just an email from them. But we will of course work with the Orange Township Fire Department for their review and approval.
Yeah, because the one is in there is from last year, and that was with the two exits from North Road.
Yes.
With the Hibbing Road used as an emergency, which was they had access to.
Okay.
And just a question of myself, what's the price range for these condominiums?
We're initially believing for the first floor 225 and the second floor 250,000 as far as the entry price point.
And I personally, I think I like the condos better than the apartments. I think that's an interesting comment from Township trustees. Do you think this will get you over the hump with the Township trustees this time if this is approved here?
I would hope so. They're obviously have to make the decision on their own. We did have discussions, as I mentioned previously, about they would choose or would hope this would be an ownership type of property, essentially from a personal owner of each individual type of unit. So as I mentioned, and I don't know, for how much discussion, we want to rehash, but as I mentioned earlier, our difficulty is traditionally building a larger single family home within this area because of the tracks and the Jennings field, and trying to sell these for roughly, $400,000 to $500,000 of a single family home and having that challenge. However, with the thought that, listening to the residents as well as the trustees in the last time, we believe that, an ownership or individually owned type of property may be able to be tolerated by the residents to the west as well as the trustees.
I'm in agreement with you. I voted for approval the last time simply because I agree. I think it's a difficult spot to build higher end single family homes across the railroad tracks in Jennings Field. I agree with you. I agree with that whole premise. I think it does need the second entrance, but I guess we'll have to see what Fire says about that. And
Fire will require the separate entrance.
yeah, I think they may, because they approved it before with the second entrance. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
I have a few comments here. I'll just run through them. So I didn't see anywhere on the elevations or floor plans, and maybe you guys haven't gotten to this yet, but where are the condensing units or I guess HVAC, the HVAC units or anything like that? Is that going to be primarily on the back of these buildings, and then those will be screened? Is that correct?
Yes, they're backs and actually sides as well. So
Okay.
there's, like I mentioned before, there's 8 units. So we'll have 2 on each end, and then on the side and the back we'll have 4 and 4. And they're screened by a cedar fence or a cedar, and as well as plantings.
Okay, good. kind of going back to that fire access, the emergency access down there. I know it's just showing dashed and it looks like grass. What's the intention there? Is that going to be paved, or is it going to be, you know, something other than grass?
It'll be paved, 20-foot wide pavement with gates on each end.
Okay.
There'll be a gate at the southern end adjacent to the single family, and then another gate placed on the northern end. And this would be 20-foot pavement per the fire department's requirements. And then, like I mentioned, we'll leave access for pedestrian in between those gated areas, but want to prevent vehicular traffic coming and going from that area.
Okay, that's good. Kind of going back to the beginning. So, Joe, I think it was you were talking about the model homes and the reasoning behind why you didn't want to put a limitation on it. I think our code, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it's 1 year is what the conditional use is for, to have model homes. And just because of what you're saying, if the market shifts or something, you're saying that 1 year time frame is not adequate, that it would be, you would need more time than that. I mean, I think I would be more comfortable if we were to put a limitation on that rather than just leaving it open-ended where model homes could be present here at all in any given time.
Okay. No, I don't disagree. From a standpoint of other communities in the past, we've proposed, up to a certain percentage of sales.
Yeah, exactly.
That we would maintain the models as well as the sales office. And, traditionally, we want to keep the models and sales office until the last unit sold. If the board is, accepting of maybe language such as, the developer will maintain models and sales office until the last sale of the community, if that's acceptable.
I mean, we've certainly done it before where it's a percentage of sales. I don't know how the board feels about it, but
Okay.
I think I'd be willing to entertain that.
Okay.
Haven't we always had a percentage of sales? I mean, is it different for condos versus single family homes?
Well, in our world, traditionally, there's not a lot of cross-selling between product. From the standpoint of the marketability, is traditionally the condominiums are, the sales office and the models are located within the community. When you have like a Rockford or MI Homes, they have the luxury of having other communities and other salespeople located in other communities to where they can essentially close down their model and their office much earlier in the process. As far as the sales, what we've have done in the past is, the issue for us is we have done in the past where we shut down the office and the sales office when we have, let's say, 10% of the units left. And then we noticed through our sales process that those last 10 units, it takes an extremely long period of time for us to sell through the product. Whereas if we leave the model and the sales office in place on site, usually the speed of sales is much different, is our only concern. But we can obviously adjust for whatever we come to determine is reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, I kind of see Adam's point a little bit with this, but I also see this as being a difference than a single family home with respect to having a home as a model open all the time versus a condo. I see this as being a lot less. I guess that's my point.
Okay.
So Joe, how many units do you think you would have at any given time, or what would be the maximum you would have as model units?
Oh, just two. Yeah.
Okay.
We just have the first and second floor unit closest to the clubhouse as a model.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned, there are 2 floor plans. Single. The first story is a 2-bedroom. The second story is a 3-bedroom.
Yeah. Michelle, if I'm wrong on this, I'm trying to pull from memory, but I believe it's 6 parking stalls per model unit. And I know you have more than 12 spaces there, but you also have the clubhouse and other things that people are going to be pulling in there. And I get it. You have the garage and everything else and parking in front of that. But I just want to make sure that we're not going to get into a situation where we're going to have, and I think Christine even maybe have at one point commented on this at another, the previous meeting or something, but just with parking, just so this
I can't
doesn't
hear you.
become a problem.
Okay, I'm sorry you blinked out on me.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that it was 6 parking stalls per model unit, and that would be 12 spaces, which doesn't give a whole lot left for the clubhouse.
Adam, I think the parking's actually been cut down in this to 2.43 per unit, I believe, as I was reading.
Yes. Yeah,
They are seeking a divergence to our parking standards.
right.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how the parking was working as well, because it looks like there's a space in the garage, a space out front in what would be the driveway, and then guest parking by the clubhouse. Is that correct?
This is Todd Ferris. Yeah, that's correct. We also have parallel parking around each one of those greens.
Okay.
We didn't want to have the head-in parking around those greens because that kind of destroys the look of them. But the parallel parking, we have those around there.
That was my concern. That this is supposed to look like, how should I put it? Actually, Adam, were you done? Am I interrupting your?
Well, I have more comments, but no, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say, Adam, you can go first before I start.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll just mute myself.
Okay. So, the next comment I had was in regards to the lighting, the photometric plan you guys provided. You have a light fixture, I guess closest to the south building there on the street, and it's showing the values around it at somewhere around 2 or 3. But the code, anywhere where there's adjoining residential, we can't have light spilling over. And it may be helpful to just verify or even maybe put on the plan what the light values are at the property line to see if we have any light pollution or light spilling over into those single family units to the south.
Okay.
The next comment we kind of already addressed or talked about a little bit. It's in regards to open space. I know that 20% is the requirement, and you guys are around 62. So that's great that we have that much open space. That definitely a positive. The only thing, and not that this would bump you below, excuse me, below the requirement, but the code states that we can't, I guess, up to 10%, so roughly 2.4 acres of that or more cannot be considered open space if it's a pond. I don't know what that dimension is. I couldn't find, or the size of that is. I couldn't find that anywhere. It looks probably close to it, but I just want to make sure we're not including over that 10% threshold for that. And even if we were, and that was to be excluded, it's still not going to put you below the 20%. I just want to make sure that the number we're looking at is valid.
Todd, do you have a number on that size of pond or?
No, but we can verify that in the next hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Just real quick on that pond thing. Did you guys say you're going to have to expand the pond? It's already a pond there, but you're going to make it bigger. Is that correct? Or?
Yeah, we have to redevelop the pond. We
Okay.
chose to move the clubhouse further back away from North Road. The pond is existing now, so we're going to have to take out some of the existing pond, fill in
Okay.
and where the clubhouse pool is, as well as the back of the clubhouse itself. That area will now be redeveloped and moving the pond further to the south.
Okay.
Yeah, Les, that's actually a good comment. That just reminded me. So, Todd, maybe you would know this, but Todd Ferris, but there's, looking at the storm utility plan, it appears to be that there's 2 easements and drainage coming off of north. I think well, that's coming off of, is that North Farms or Shanahan? But I believe there's two storm lines that are running into the existing pond now. What would cut through, you know, your buildings and everything? Are those just going to be removed and then rerouted? Is that kind of what you're showing on that plan? Is we would abandon, or you would abandon those and then have those lines diverted back into that pond, so that drainage being pulled
Yes.
off that street? Okay.
Yeah, they're actually just drainage swales right now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so we developed the pond as part of our property for MI Homes, and as well as Shanahan Road, so and North Road. So we just put, there's a pipe that's on North Farms MI section, which goes underneath North Road, and then outlets into a drainage swale that goes into the pond currently. But then there's an outlet pipe already in the pond that goes down the boundary of the railroad track down to where Rockford Homes is building now, and outlets into a culvert that goes underneath the railroad track. So we'll just abandon what would be those drainage swales and
Okay.
redevelop the storm sewer, and then redo the easements.
Okay. All right. And then the last comment here is more, you know, there was, you know, the opposition obviously from the last round, and some of the improvements that you guys were very accommodating on in making some of those changes from the last meeting was, in particular, you know, regarding the density. I know it's the exact same density as or close to what you were asking for before and what was approved, but there were certainly some concerns with having that one access, and you know, Dennis already touched on this a little bit, but I feel like if we were to have you know, they didn't want, if I remember correctly, a lot of the residents to the west there were saying that having that one access point, there was just concerns of that traffic and stuff. And I know you guys provided a traffic study and some good documentation on, you know, the lower trip counts. It's not as significant as people would think. I just think if there was an opportunity to bring in a second access, I think that would be appreciated, just because it would help alleviate some of that. And also, you know, as Dennis indicated, possibly with the fire, they may have actually end up requesting that. And that's really all I had. I mean, I would say, you know, another concern that the residents had before, which I think you guys did a great job on, was creating that buffer. And I know you have a very similar one here, but you know, I with having more units like this, there's not as much flexibility of that kind of organic shape and things that you had going on at the front entrance there, and kind of pulling those units back. I know you're well past the required setbacks there, so you know, I don't know if there is any opportunity to kind of create something similar to that older plan or not, but you know, it was just a concern, and I think you guys did a great job addressing it, and in both the last design and this one as well. I just, if you remember, you know, you kind of had more where the buildings kind of were a little bit further away. So that was just my last comment. Just something to take in consideration if it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So just real quick, the floor size is pretty standard. All the bottom floors are the same size and the top floors are the same size. Is that?
That's correct. Yeah, yes.
So all of them are uniform. And then it's one car garage. Is that accurate for all of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a product that we brought from Naples, Florida. We built this over near New Albany years back when we were building exclusively for sale condominiums. Like I mentioned, we had a opportunity with a developer that worked down in Naples with some sharing of type of unit plans, and these were essentially golf course type of condominiums where the rear of the building, the screen porch faced the golf course. And then they were developed around, like Todd mentioned, having the rear porch facing, or the rear screen facing open space, which these were designed to face golf courses. And unfortunately, the railroad will have to consider the golf course at this point. So,
Joe, is the New Albany project, is that the closest or most similar product?
yeah, yes,
around here? Okay.
it's identical, and it's Preston Woods. It's located at the corner of Hamilton Road and a street called Warner. But it's located behind some commercial properties and adjacent to another single-story condominium development there. But it's called Preston Woods.
And kind of just going back to the parking real quick. So for each unit, there's the garage, and then I guess just a flat space to park on, and then if there's additional parking, that's on the street, or where's the additional parking?
Yeah, that's correct. We have several spaces by the clubhouse,
Okay.
and each one of those greens has parallel parking around those greens.
Okay.
We typically see this product needed about similar to actually what we had shown before, 1.85, 2 spaces per unit. 3, this is heavier than what we would normally do anyway, but we know that was a concern before, so we've kept it higher intentionally.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions.
All right. Is there anybody else on the board that has any questions before we open things up to public comment?
I have some questions and I guess some comments. And a lot of them are probably because I was not part of the first North Farms zoning request. So I'm not sure exactly what was discussed back then. But I guess what my concern is that you said that this is modeled off of sort of Preston Woods in New Albany, that's near commercial properties and other condos. The difference being here to the south and to the west, they're single family homes. And those single family homes bought those homes with the understanding that this was going to be single family with 43 units. And now you're at 144, which is over 3 times what they bought into, which has me concerned because that's a major difference for the neighbors. I understand it's a very difficult site, but you're already requesting a divergence for more units than our multifamily code allows, and that has me concerned. The other thing that has me concerned, and I think you addressed it earlier, was your request for a permanent sales office and permanent model units makes it sound like it's an apartment complex. You say that it's a condo. A condo is just a form of land ownership. It looks like an apartment complex. And when you have things like a permanent sales office and a permanent model homes, it sounds like an apartment complex. And I think I'm concerned that's how people will view it. So I would definitely limit, put in some sort of clause to limit that sales office and to limit those model units, because that's what you see in an apartment complex. And I don't know what you can do about it visually, but visually it looks like an apartment complex. It doesn't look like a condo in terms of townhomes or different types of units. You're providing flats, which if you look around here in Lewis Center, and Michelle, you can chime in, we really don't have flats as condos. We have flats as apartments. And if this was turned down by the trustees because it was an apartment complex or because it looks like an apartment complex, I'm afraid you're going to have those same problems. And I think Michelle already addressed that you're not going to have a trash compactor. It looks like you're not going to have a garage unit buildings. So I would remove that from the text because it's a little confusing. And those also make it sound like an apartment complex.
Yeah, I think that was carryover from our last application, so we apologize. We'll make those corrections.
Exactly. And so that's not going to help your argument if you include things like that. And I think as we addressed earlier, the access, with 144 units, I know the fire department's definitely going to require you to have a second access. Whether or not the temporary, or not temporary, but the provisional access, whatever you want to call it, linking up to, I guess it's Higgins Road to the south, will suffice, I don't know. But 144 units going in and out of one access road across from a multifamily across from a single family, I'm not sure how the single family people across the street are going to be receptive to that. That all that traffic for the condominium project is going basically where they're trying to leave one of the outlets from their single family community. So I would definitely try and work with the fire department to see if another access is at all possible.
Understood.
Why was that
But that's
second
just part of
access
what-
taken out of this development versus the first one? Why was it removed? Was to get another building? Was it?
Well, yeah, we were trying to keep the same number of units as far as the economics of the development.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it was just, and Christine, to answer your question about the flats, if you want, we built a similar product for sale condominiums just over at Olentangy Crossing, which is, north of the Kroger store and just west of the Olentangy High School football field. Those were all flats. That was 154 units of all flats, as I mentioned earlier, with 2-bedroom on the first floor and 3-bedroom on the second floor. So it's similar unit. These ones are a little different interior design as well as exterior design. But again, those were 154 flat units that were built in Orange Township. And I think we had our last sales in there probably around 2018.
And those were built by the Kroger complex on 23, correct?
Yes. If you look, like I mentioned, there's that, I guess, single family subdivision. It's probably dates in the 1970s, just adjacent to it. And then the Olentangy High School just to the west of it. And then, of course, Olentangy Schools just to the north of it. And there's single family homes along Shanahan to the north of it as well. But there was, mixed use back there with, they planned communities brought in mixed use with, a lot of different products in that same neighborhood. They had single family homes, and then they also had our multifamily. And then, like I mentioned, the commercial out front.
If I remember correct, that only had one access point as well, and the other was emergency.
Yeah, we had an access point off of, I want to say Trailwind, but I could be wrong. And then we had emergency access to the schools as far as the long spine road that goes in front of Olentangy High School and Shanahan Middle School and Heritage. There's a private road that goes from Shanahan all the way down to Lewis Center. We made a connection there to the that private road for our fire access. But obviously, listening to the board tonight about the importance of the second access, we will absolutely entertain that and look further into providing that as part of going forward with this application. We understand your guys' concern about the traffic being all concentrated to that one exit point there on North Road. So we'll definitely look at that more intensely and discuss it also with the fire department.
I agree with the comments on the second entrance and share the concern with the permanent sales building as well as the 2 permanent model homes. I wanted to see, we may have covered this earlier. Have we already addressed the staff recommendation to increase the amount of usable open space areas?
Yes, that was the what Todd Ferris addressed as far as our thought was to reprogram some of these mounting areas, we were going to make these mounting areas a little bit more narrow and essentially connect the trail system around the pond area all the way along the railroad track, but inside the mounting adjacent to the pond, and then make all this area behind the units and connecting it to the dog park and making that usable space, open space basically surrounding the entire community with a trail system. And then internally to the trail system, there'll be, benches and seating intermittently placed along that trail system to make a better use of the open space adjacent to the railroad.
Thank you.
Adam, I did have a question that came up recently after my staff report, if it's okay.
Yeah, please.
I just was questioning, as far as the construction timeline, in the development text, it says that you would plan on constructing fall of next year of 2022. Is there a reason why it's going to take a bit longer to start? Is there any road improvements that you would have to be done? Just kind of wanted to comment on.
No, it takes us about 8 months to have Delaware County engineers review and approve our plans, as well as the building permits with the Delaware County Building Department. We submit, upon final zoning approvals, we submit probably within 30 days of that time frame. So, you're looking at maybe possibly July by the time we first submittal. They take 35 to 45 days to review the plans. So you're in the middle of August to September. And they usually do 3 rounds of comments. So you're looking at least 90 days of their review process, and another 90 days of us essentially going back over their comments to get a final plan approval. So we wish it was shorter. And if it is shorter, we'll start much sooner. As you know, we're very, obviously we would be pressed to get this thing started as quick as possible.
So are you aware if the county is going to require any road improvements on North Road or Shanahan?
No, this is the same requirements as last time. 144 units is 144, single family, attached condominiums or apartments, whatever you may call it. They're all the same traffic generators. So as part of this original development, we widened North Road. As before, North Road was a narrow roadway in the sense that it was basically an old township or county road. So we widened the entire roadway from Shanahan to the southernmost point. And we also put in turn lanes on Shanahan Road as part of the original development. So essentially we already have done and completed it. We even have the apron for the roadway entry into our future connection here is already installed. And then we have sewer that connects right here. And then we have the new water lines that we upgraded along North Road as well as Shanahan. And we originally brought a sewer from the Olentangy High School over by the most western point of the football fields through the baseball fields and onto this property back in 2014. So we developed this area, as far as the sewer and the water lines and so on.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is Pete Griggs. I just have one question for Joe. Joe, does your sample condominium declaration restrict the number of units that can be rented?
I believe I have Jill Taman.
No, it does not. On its in the initial document, the owners have the right to vote to restrict rentals, but that's reserved to the owners. The declarant, as the developer, doesn't have the right really to put that in the condominium documents.
Okay.
I have a question. At what point does it revert from the developer to the condo association? We've had issues in the township in the past.
It's a progression under state
Okay.
law. As you sell out the units, it's, I think at 25%, you have to elect one of the 3 association members has to be an owner. And then at 50, then the second one, and then at 75, all three have to be owners of the association.
Okay.
So it should be getting turned over at 75%.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure. I didn't read the fine print, I'll be honest.
Now, Christine, one of the concerns is, I just want to be frank with you, is a lot of times we don't get enough volunteers in these communities to go on the board. So for the condominium's sake, we may ever have a everlasting board member, depending on the level of, from a standpoint of their willingness to volunteer their time. I'm on existing boards in Delaware County and in Columbus and Franklin County because we don't have enough neighbors.
Right. And obviously there will be a professional management company that's retained, as is the case with almost every condominium association. So we're not going to leave, maintenance and open space care and all that sort of thing to 3 volunteers.
All right. I guess at this time we will open up to public comment. I just want to remind everybody of the ground rules, the 3-minute time frame, and also if we can avoid any type of redundancy. If someone had already made a similar comment, please refrain from using your time to reiterate that comment or just reword it in a different way. So at this time, Michelle, if we can open it up for public comment. And just another reminder, just make sure you state your name, address before you speak. Thank you.
I just messaged in the Zoom group chat what Adam just reiterated, and then if possible, if you can raise your hand on the Zoom, we'll know to unmute you. Otherwise, if you can just have patience as we try to get everybody's voices heard. And then I will have a timer for the 3 minutes, and then Jeff Beard will be moderating the comments and muting and unmuting everybody that would like to speak. So Jeff, I'll let you start that.
All right, yeah, I unmuted the first one. It was Jay Tar was the name on here.
Hey, hello everyone. This is Jay Thar from 5740 Somersworth Loop in North Farms. So my question was, overall from the last time, the number of units hasn't changed. So all the problems that we had discussed last time, like the school, the load on the school, the traffic, and everything is still going to remain the same. On top of that, now, instead of a leasing company or rental company leasing apartments and doing a good proper background verification, we will be asking the owners of the condos to do the background verification, and that can be much less so as compared, much less stringent as compared to what a company does. So my point is that you are making this much more dangerous. We had crime rate was one of the most important factors last time, and we are making this much more dangerous for the community and neighborhood than what it was last time. Do you wish to comment on that?
Jai, we're going to go through all the public comments and then we'll have a rebuttal, or the applicant and the board members can respond to it from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other public comment? You can raise your hand or.
Yes, good evening. This is Andy Pitts. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm a resident at 5288 Loudon Drive. My backyard faces east to this parcel. I want to, thank the board for hearing our concerns in the prior application. Joining tonight, our stance as a community has not changed on our view for multifamily rezoning, regardless of product. And, I don't know if the board's aware, but the Rockford single family parcel just south of this one is approximately at 50% sold already, directly along the tracks. So in conjunction with other developments along the tracks, including Glen Ross, Glen Oak, North Point Meadows, villages of Oak Creek and the village of Elm Creek, for example. So regardless of the product, my family moved here partly because of the great community, but also knowing that our backyards were going to be facing similar single family development. And I just want to comment that I oppose rezoning for the application. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Steve Hosfeld. I'm at 5544 Summersworth Loop in North Farms Development. I agree with much of what Andy mentioned, but I had a couple additional comments. One, in addition to the sale prices of the 2 units, I was interested in understanding the condo association fees as well. I am concerned about the fact that there are no limitations initially to the potential for these units to be rented by the owners. And I think that gets us essentially to the same place where we were last time with this. And for that reason, I'm have to oppose this new development. If there was some way to ensure that these were going to be owner occupied, I may change my opinion. But given the density here and the fact that there doesn't sound like there's really any controls over the potential for them to be rented by individual owners, that makes me have a real concern. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Hi, this is Steve Cohn, 1370 Farnham Street in Lewis Center. I also oppose this. I also want to thank Christine. I feel like Christine is one of the members who truly put herself in our shoes when she talked about some of the differences between this multifamily unit versus our single family homes. My wife and I worked very hard for a very, very long time to move to a community with more open space, with less density, with single family homes. We would not have purchased our home, and many of our residents would not have built and purchased their home if we were told that those were not single family homes in that lot. I do want to make that very clear. I'm very confident in speaking with many, many residents. We would have not purchased these specific homes if we would have known that multifamily units are right there across the street. I live a couple of 100 feet from this proposal, and you could see it out of many of my windows, and it's right there. And I just want to reiterate that our community opposes all multifamily units. We want single family units, which is what we were told when many of us spent between $400,000 and $500,000 on our homes a couple of years ago. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Hi, this is Anand Joshi here. I echo the same thought. When we bought the house, we were told that there won't be any multifamily unit around this lot or within the North Farms. So that's one. And second is, I just wanted to understand from the question perspective, what will prevent today if this gets, if gets approved as a condominium unit, what will prevent the management from converting it into apartment and rent them out? Thank you.
Thanks, Anand. Just to reiterate real quick, we're hearing a lot of the same comments of, a lot of opposition against multifamily and purchasing their current home, and the points definitely well been received. It's additional comments or anything other than that.
Hi, my name is Sandeep Reddy. I'm from 1367 Swanton Street. I recently moved to this community, and since you mentioned you don't want to hear the old comments, but I just wanted to know, previous zoning was cancelled because of apartments and other reasons. I would like to also know, how does it make difference in terms of schools? And I definitely know the population gonna increase, and children going to the school gonna increase, and what sort of improvements you are making. And the second thing is I would like to know in terms of how does it impact the property taxes and other areas, and if more students increases in this area, and how do you see that in next coming 5 years also? What?
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Harish Velpureddy, and I live in 5683 Dorrington Street. And I echo Christine's comments, she already spoke whatever concerns that I have, but I just wanted to reiterate, last time, I think I am the one who was opposing for the school factor, school capacity. But this time I was surprised in the staff meeting. We did not even mention about school capacity being impacted with, rezoning it to multifamily. But yeah, I'm just seeing that we just changed the brand name from apartments to condos, and we kind of reapplied. But I'm not surprised, even if it gets rejected now, it would come as another application, and I don't think we have an option for that. But yeah, definitely schools, road traffic are the main concerns in the crime rate.
Thanks, Harish.
Hey. My name is Hemant Kumar Devan. I reside at 5593 Mercier Street. I would like to just add one comment. I agree with all the people who are opposing it. One comment I would like to add is, so initially it was proposed as multi-family home, and now it's a condo. What if a company comes in, buys the entire unit, and rents it out? I believe I heard that there is no restriction, and it's up to the owner to rent it. So I can come up with a company, buys the entire unit and rent it out. Then it's going to be like an apartment. That's my comment I would like to share.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erica Phillips. I'm at 5265 Loudon Drive, and our property backs up to these units. And I was wondering, has there been any consideration as far as the taxes that are going to be collected by the township or the county, and how that's going to affect police presence, fire? Will there be an increase? Has that been considered at all?
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Sandeep Balgarkashi. I live in 5293 Lawton Drive. I was a part of last year where they were planning for apartment, and now they're coming up with the condo. But I don't see any difference with the number of homes and everything. So I live right across the street where the apartments are building or the condos. So it's really scary, especially the crime rates and everything. So I strongly oppose the current plan. And instead, I am in favor of having a single family home. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Hey, this is Sandeep again. I'm from 136 Swanton Street. I just would like to add one more point. So do you guys have an estimate of the number of students coming out from this condo to going to school and high school and all those? Can you please address that?
Okay, thank you, Sandeep.
Hi, this is Leah Stern, 5372 Middlebury Loop. I just had a question. When these were going to be single family homes, I'm curious what the price point was at that time. And that's all.
Thank you, Leah.
Is there anybody else? If you feel free to message in the chat or raise your hand, or if you do unmute yourself, please state your name and address.
Hi, this is Melissa Billadou. I'm at 5423 Strawberry Lane. And my question is, when was the last attempt to sell this as single family?
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Do we have any
Yes,
other?
hi.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Cheryl Everett. I'm at 5255 Loudon Drive. My backyard is in direct view of the proposed condos. I do know we were kind of like beating the dead horse with the concerns. I think one of my largest concerns with the company moving forward is something we voiced pretty adamantly about during our last meetings that I participated in. All of them were, what has this company done to reach out to the community to truly see what our interests are? We clearly know what their interests are. And personally living in direct view of these, and many of my close neighbors and friends have continued to be concerned that, there's no concern for our cares about this. Nobody reached out. We get a letter saying we're rezoning, but where's the outreach to the community to say, if I propose this, where's it going to go? And being so close to it, it's, a little disheartening when we have to continue to repeatedly join these meetings and say the same thing over and over. We're tired of it too. Let's move forward with single family homes. And I don't see why we have to have any other further discussion personally. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Hi, my name is Srikanth. I live in 5532 Middlebury Loop. I have a, how many total units will be there? And do we have an estimate of a similar community within Olentangy School District? With given these many units, how many children might go to elementary, middle, and high schools? Do we have? Did we do any such analysis compared to a similar community? That's what I want to know.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Niharika, and I live in 5728 Somersworth Loop. We already have power issues currently within the community. With these many homes being added, I would like to understand, was there any consideration made with the power issues that we already have?
Okay, thank you. All right. Oh, Jeff, do we have anybody else right now? I don't see any hands.
Hi, this is Mahesh Kolli. I live at 5284 Loudon Drive, and my backyard directly faces this parcel. And I echo the same questions as Andy and Melissa asked. So my question would be, why single family homes coming up in south of this parcel and other communities, and why can't they be coming here right across the track? And yeah, that's my question.
Thank you, Mahesh.
So we have one more that has their hand raised. Benod.
Yeah, here and I live in 5400 Strawberry Lane. I'm just curious to know what do you consider to be a valid reason not to go forward with these condos or apartments. I'm just curious, what kind of reasons are you looking for? If there are any concerns?
Hey, Vinod,
what makes it more legitimate concern for the company?
Vinod,
we all are raising our concerns, but also want to hear on the other side what do you truly think are the legitimate concerns and what makes you.
Vinod, if you can you hear me? Your sound is cutting out. I'm happy to address that comment if you want to send it in the Zoom chat. Apologize for the technical difficulty. It's still cutting out pretty bad. So if you are able to hear us, if, like I said, if you could send Vinod, if you could send your concerns in the chat, I can speak on behalf of you. out pretty bad.
While we're waiting on Vinod there, I just want to address Steve Cohn's comment here in the chat. Just we appreciate you guys not wanting to duplicate or say the same thing that someone's already said, and we certainly hear the concern and opposition against the development, and know that the amount of people in here, and so I mean we definitely appreciate you guys, just if someone's already said something, just not repeating it, but we certainly understand where everybody's coming from.
Hi, this is Vijay from 5756 Somersworth Loop. I think the last time when this parcel came in, we almost had to go through the same exercise for several weeks to months before it finally got rejected. This parcel that we are looking at now is pretty much similar with just a new brand name. So I'm afraid that we are going to go through the same exercise and with an unknown outcome for several weeks. But the message is, I think, pretty much loud and clear that the community close to this development is completely against it. So I just want the board members to recognize that, and thank you for that today.
Next to speak would be Cheryl. She has another comment she would like to make.
Yeah, hi. I spoke just a little bit ago, 5255 Loudon. I just want to make it known that, we've all obviously picked this area for the single family home, and I've been very reluctant to make improvements to my home, awaiting to see, what was going to happen with these apartments. And I was so relieved and excited when, we had the trustees completely on our side, and everyone was just so grateful that had gotten rejected and that we would have this single family home, and where we're moving forward and wanting to do things to like our backyard. I don't want somebody across the street looking into my backyard when I want to put a patio in or a deck or a swimming pool. I want to make this house my forever home. And now I feel like we're getting pulled all back into this phase of how long is it going to take now? And do I need to hold back now on making these improvements because I don't want a condo looking into my backyard? So I think my biggest question now leading into this is how long until we're going to have a definitive answer so that I can move on as well. Thank you.
Hi, this is Shrikant Bangaru from 5476 Middlebury Loop. I had one question. I'm not sure if some of my other neighbors have already asked, but I was looking at the documentation that was submitted regarding renting and leasing policies. In prior conversations, we have talked about the ownership aspect of things, where apartment communities, generally tend to have floating traffic. But in this case, too, talks about lease agreements being at least 12 months. 12 months is okay, but that still doesn't answer the question of ownership. It just talks about people leasing, families coming in and leasing for 12 months and then renewing, but they're not accounted regarding ownership. And with ownership also comes a sense of community and pride and all that, which I think this particular this particular parcel will lack, especially with the development that's being targeted regarding condos and all. So it doesn't answer that overall question of ownership, which we as part of North Farms take a lot of pride in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Koti Paturi at 1205 Lennox Court. So when we were buying the homes in North Farm community around 4.5 years before, we were told that the parcel that you are presenting right now, it's definitely going to be a single family homes. So that was the main intention around 4.5 years before when we are buying these homes. So we were thinking that, okay, so everybody would be surrounded by the single family homes, and then the community looks great and everything is gonna be positive. But then fast forward after 4 years, we realized that it's going to be condominiums, and then, I mean, the first apartment complex and then condominium. So we were pretty much unhappy about these movements, and year after year, people are coming up with new approaches, but selling the same thing. So we don't find much of the difference between the apartment complex and the condominiums that we just presented, because there are a lot of gaps in here. So there's no guarantee that people who bought the whole unit and they can rent it out over a period of time, right? So so I just wanted to highlight those pieces. But as a community, we are pretty much unhappy about this. And also, one of the neighbor asked a similar question in the past, like there are some other communities that were built across the railroad, but they were single family homes. Why especially this parcel is going to be like this? Thank you so much.
All right. Jeff, is there anybody else?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that have raised their hand or contacted me.
And also, Adam, just for the record, we did receive three written emails of concern that was forwarded on to the zoning commission members, and I've been advised that there's been concerns related to the board of trustees as well.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll close public comment and open it back up to the applicant for any.
Adam, I'm sorry. I think we might have one more, right, Jeff?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I see it. It just popped up.
Yeah, they just popped up. So
then, just for the this will be the last one this evening. Thank you. Thank you all.
be Alicia Saunders.
Hi, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Leisha Leger, and I'm at 5247 Loudon Drive. And I just kind of wanted to expand on one of my neighbor's comments, Cheryl, who just called in. My backyard also would face this community. And I continue to be opposed to the project because for me, I think it still feels like an apartment complex. But from a design standpoint, when I look at this layout and I see like 5 or 7 buildings all lined up in a row, I think it's just visually, if this were to happen, it's visually unappealing for us to stare at several hundred feet of what's going to end up looking like a ginormous warehouse building. So that's my comment, that there's just no variation in this. And then if you kind of count up how many people would be living in those units, especially on the second floor, 8 per unit, how many families are now staring and sitting on their back patios looking at our future patios and pools. So I just want to understand why that isn't taken into consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will be closing public comment now and opening it back up to the applicant. Joe or Todd, do you want to respond to the comments? Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute.
No problem.
I don't know if you're able to allow me to share the screen again, Michelle. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
So, I think a lot of the discussion is about, more importantly, from a standpoint of consistency on this was, and we'll address them, all the points, but one of the overriding points was the impact on the schools. The schools more recently put out an overall report of all different types of housing impacts on basically the school population. And they put this report out on December 2nd, 2020. It's since been updated, and I believe it's been published as far as overall information, but the report I have, as I mentioned, is December 2nd, 2020. And in their report, they have analyzed every type of development that's located in Olentangy School District, and they analyze it from single family homes, apartment rentals, condominium detached, condominiums attached, duplexes, luxury condominiums detached, and then manufactured homes. And the analysis shows that a condominium attached of this type, the actual yield for number of school-aged children is 0.15. And this is the same discussion we had last time on the apartments. The apartments yield on their studies, again, from December 2020 is 0.18 yield per household. So the math of 0.15 rounded up is 22 students per household. And I put together this same analysis last time to show what the existing North Farm single family impact is on the school district currently, or as of that point when we had the previous application. There's currently 183 students in North Farms that go to Olentangy schools. As I mentioned before, the tuition for 183 students is roughly $2 million. What's collected there now, when I made this analysis, was $1,439,000. Again, there is some other revenue that is provided to the schools that just doesn't come from property taxes. So if you use what is additionally used from property taxes, which is 0.69% of the overall of tuition money, is $1,388,000. And then the distribution to the schools for this particular development is $1,029,000. So there's a deficit already from the schools in North Farm single family homes of roughly $359,000. Now, if the condos are developed, again, the yield, as I mentioned earlier, is 22 students. Now, again, this comes directly from the information provided by Olentangy School District. And as I mentioned earlier, they have published all these numbers, and this is broken down by all different types of homes in the school district itself. But there is roughly, of 144 homes, roughly $3,353 per home on property taxes. Again, this is very conservative number as far as the amount of property taxes developed for this particular development. So just being very conservative. Of this development, there'd be 22 students of roughly $11,000 to educate, which is $242,000. So just to jump to the point, this development alone will generate an excess revenue for the school district of $178,244 just alone for additional monies to the school for tuition or cost of educating children. So I just want to point that out. Now, as far as another issue that people brought up before was the crime and or traffic. We've had no indication of any type of crime rates going up because of multifamily type of housing, including condominium apartments. We've talked to the Delaware County Sheriff's Department. They have no indication that having an attached condominium or attached apartment project brings additional crime to the area. So I'm not sure how to further expound upon that issue at all. And what Andy Pitts also mentioned was, as far as the type of development of no multifamily, the concern that we had, that everybody had last time was there was not going to have any type of ownership of the property. And their concern was if there was no ownership, there wouldn't be personal accountability for homeowners in the area as far as how the community is going to be basically managed or maintained, or consensus as far as that if it's a multifamily for rent product, the type of user is, not necessarily going to give as much care about the communities itself or be basically a part of the community. But as we mentioned earlier, we are going to make these a for sale condominium, so we think we have addressed that issue. We mentioned earlier about the sales price being $225,000 to $250,000 depending on the unit. Condo fees traditionally start out in these type of developments at $150 per month. And those fees are used for maintaining the landscaping, removing snow, and maintaining the clubhouse, and then property insurance, and then irrigation and so on for the grounds. Jill, are you on you can probably discuss the limitations of rentals and condominiums.
Sure, be happy to. I just wanted to kind of give some explanation around, issues of limiting rentals and condominiums. And there's really two reasons why we can't, as the developer, limit rentals in a condominium. And frankly, they're the same two reasons that single family homes typically do not have any restrictions on rentals. My guess is there are, all of the houses across the street in the subdivision can be rented. The reason for this is, one, if developers put restrictions on renting single family homes or condominiums, they can be found in violation of Fair Housing Acts. So as a general rule, developers don't have the ability to place restrictions on rentals. And then the second reason is that lenders, as they lend on your single, they put a mortgage on your single family home, they'll put a mortgage on these condominiums, and the right to rent that unit is part of the value that the lender is getting. So it's very hard for the developer to sell the units if there are restrictions on rentals, same as if they were single family homes. So, the reason that we don't have any limitations doesn't have anything to do with apartments per se. It really is no different than if we were building single family homes, we wouldn't be able to put restrictions on rentals on single family homes either. Now, the Ohio law has recognized, because condominiums are somewhat unique, the owner occupants, so once we sell our units, they can collectively vote to restrict rentals, because then, it's no longer the developer who is restricting the rentals, it's the owners who are making that determination, the owner occupants. And so they're allowed to do that when we sell the units. So I just wanted to give that explanation. That's not because we expect these to be apartments, as Joe has reiterated repeatedly. These will be for sale, and it's our goal to sell them and sell them as quickly as we can. But that's the reason why we're not putting restrictions on rentals.
Then a couple of other questions was, one question in particular was the last time we attempted to sell the single family. And I have a date of Saturday, January 23rd. I had a meeting with Pulte Homes in efforts to market the additional 43 homes to them at that time. And they weren't, they were initially, interested in the property, but after further discussion as far as, the cost of the development of the site, the overall impact of the site by the Jennings Park, as well as the crossing there, from a standpoint of the railroad signal as well as sound, they decided they weren't wanting or willing to continue on in discussions for the property. One other person asked how many units, 144 as we discussed earlier. Another member asked how would we prevent, or what is the chances that a company would come in and buy the entire property as developed? Now, what we mentioned earlier is, and maybe some discussion that these are for sale condominiums. Probably in the stand, we would be not developing the entire site all at one time. It would be, we would build the clubhouse, we would build the model buildings, and we'd build a phase of condominiums, open up the sales office for sales, and then sell the existing built buildings as far as the condominiums. People would then make their interior selections on cabinets and countertops and flooring and so on. And then we'd finish out the units, and then they'd close on the units, and then we would open up new phases. So for one company to come in and buy the entire community would not fit in within that type of sales flow or sales processes that we do on our condominiums, because they're essentially would, the whole community would not be built at once. It wouldn't be occupied at once. It wouldn't be sales associated at once. So that was another. We understand that the question was additionally about taxes collected. I think I've tried to answer that one. Fire, as far as, would there be more of a impact of fire? Every one of these units has fire suppression. As a multifamily attached condominium building, there's a requirement as far as the Ohio Building Code that we have to fire suppress each and every unit, which is not traditionally or isn't required in a single family home. So each unit would have a fire sprinkler system, as well as we would work with the fire department, as we discussed earlier, to finalize their approval of the access. One other question was about reaching out to neighbors. We've always been willing to discuss further with neighbors. The overwhelming discussion last time, as everybody knows, is they're not comfortable with a multifamily product. We did not want to waste everybody's time on trying to set up neighborhood meetings. And then, of course, the discussion would have been, they want the single family homes that was in the original zoning. Our discussion tonight is, from a standpoint of, we've been at this development now for roughly 8 years with the attempt to try to sell these as single family lots and had no success. So our concern is, we've had this overwhelming discussion with the neighbors. We feel like this was an attempt to meet their needs as far as home ownership. People would have necessarily what they concern with as possible additional pride in the neighborhood, which, I'm not sure I 100% agree with that. However, with home ownership, there would be, essentially people individually would own these units and have their own, far as impact on the community, as we discussed. So I think I've addressed most of the overall questions. Again, as far as reach out to additional neighbors, as I mentioned earlier, we would be more than willing to discuss, as far as this application, on how we can improve this application as far as the multifamily condos. So we'd be willing to set up additional working groups to discuss that type of product, for us to, bring this forward as an application and then discuss, why aren't we providing single family homes for this area? That discussion has already been discussed. So it's, if we want to start over in discussions of, how we can address the neighbors' concerns about architectural details on the building, additional buffering of the buildings, additional setbacks, or new, possible relocating certain buildings that would necessarily not have as much impact, we would be willing to discuss those items. But, traditionally discussion has been just go back to the single family homes. So I don't think I missed anything overwhelming unless the board thinks I have had to address other, issues, but thank you very much.
Joe, speaking of the architectural elements, I mean, would the applicant be interested in or would be willing to do any type of variation in design amongst the buildings?
Yes, absolutely. That's, stuff we would be more than willing to discuss with neighbors as well. Our efforts with the neighbors that are adjacent to the North Farms development across North Road, we believe we've done a very nice job of screening those, buffering those with the mounding and trees, the evergreen trees that will be all year long buffering, and then the large deciduous trees that would have the large crown that would be additional buffering in the future. But if you looked at the my previous presentation, most of that mounding and trees screen the buildings from the neighbors to the west. So we feel like we've done, necessarily have created that buffer, try to be sympathetic of the neighbors across the street. Not to go and say I'm doing the best job ever. However, these buildings will screen the neighbors from the railroad noise as well. And they'll also provide additional screening for noise from Jennings Park, as well as the lighting that will be affected, in this area of the Jennings Park. So thank you.
Thank you. Adam, before we move on, I just want to reiterate to the public, I am seeing some comments on the via chat. If you have any additional questions or concerns, aside from when public comment was previously open, feel free to email them to me and I can pass them along to both the Zoning Commission and Board of Trustees. The email address should be on the notices that you received, and I will have Jeff, if you can put my email on there too. You can feel free to contact me. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you could hear me or not. So it sounds like the applicant is willing to work on the architecture of the units to perhaps accommodate the neighborhood. The unit number hasn't decreased from the first submittal. Is that your, break point, or are you also able to decrease the number of units to try to lessen the density for the neighbors?
No, I think that's up for discussion. I don't think anything, from a standpoint of, reverting back to the single family is kind of the, obviously the discussion we weren't willing to have, but I think we can also, work with the township as well as the neighbors to discuss architecture and density.
Okay. So is there any other last comments from the board?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So Joe or Todd, I guess what next steps would, and Michelle, I mean, I don't have the whole schedule in front of me. I know we have some stuff scheduled, but not too far out. So is there a date that, we could look at as making some of these revisions and maybe addressing some of these concerns and revising things that you guys would be comfortable with?
Yeah, right. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm assuming the applicant would need some time, especially with the pond reconfiguration and cooperating with our fire department too. So depending on what your time frame is to get submitted, again, once you're able to submit, we'd like 1 week in advance to review prior to the next hearing.
I guess going, from what is your next available time frame for that's open for a meeting?
The next one that we would have is March 23rd, or we would be looking at April 13th, as we don't have anything for that hearing.
Well, yeah, let's get, if we could schedule for April 13th, and we'll be ready by that point. One item we can't address quickly is the fire department. We work with them closely on all our developments, so I'm not concerned with them as far as, the access points and stuff, but the architectural features and working with the township to develop the program on that. We can, our team is flexible and can meet at any time, but obviously considering everybody else's schedule, we appreciate it.
Based on the discussion this evening, Joe, I will put together a comment memo and send it out to you all too.
Thank you.
Okay. With that said, can I get a motion to table, or I'm sorry, to continue zoning application ZON-21-01 North Farms to April 13th?
At 7 p.m.
At 7 p.m. Yes.
Yes.
In a virtual meeting.
So moved. This is Les.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Pierce to continue hearing for zoning application number ZON-21-01 for Tuesday, April 13th at 7 p.m. In virtual matters. Second by Mr. McNulty. Those voting, Mr. Pahovich?
Yes.
Mr. McNulty?
Yes.
Ms. Trabellis?
Yes.
Mr. Pierce?
Yes.
And Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.